The jungle was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, wrong quiet. U.S. infantry from the 25th Division were moving through thick Vietnamese jungle, sweat soaking their uniforms, boots sinking into wet earth. No birds, no insects, just the heavy breathing of men who knew they were being watched, but couldn't see by who. Then they saw them. 5 figures stepped out from the trees like ghosts. No noise, no warning, just suddenly, there. Australian SAS. Their uniforms were darker, lighter gear, faces painted, eyes sharp and calm, like they'd been living in the jungle for years instead of weeks. One of them, tall, with a worn slouch hat tucked into his vest, raised a hand. "Hold!" The American point man froze. Their lieutenant walked forward. "You guys running recon out here too?" The SAS patrol leader gave a small nod. "Already did." His voice was low, relaxed, but something in his tone made every American soldier instinctively quiet down. He pointed ahead toward a narrow trail cutting through the trees. "You planning to move that way?" "Yeah," the lieutenant said. "That's our route." The SAS man didn't answer right away. He just looked at them, one by one, measuring. Then he spoke. "There's an object about 50 meters ahead. Looks like scrap metal, half buried." One of the American soldiers smirked. "Like a mine?" The SAS man didn't smile back. "Worse?" Silence. "What kind of worse?" the lieutenant asked. The Australian stepped closer. His voice dropped lower. "You touch it. You die. You walk near it. Maybe you die. You try to move it. Everyone dies." The jungle felt colder. Another SAS trooper added quietly, "We marked a bypass route. Stick to it. Exactly. Don't improvise." One of the younger U.S. soldiers muttered, "It's just a trap. We've seen traps." The SAS patrol leader's eyes snapped to him. "No," he said. Calm, firm, certain. "You haven't seen this one." The Americans exchanged glances. Pride, doubt, curiosity. The lieutenant nodded politely. "Appreciate the heads up." But as the SAS team melted back into the jungle, one U.S. soldier whispered what several were thinking. How bad could it be? Up ahead, half hidden in mud and leaves, something metallic waited, and it had already been claimed by the jungle. They found it. At first, it didn't look like anything special, just a shape in the mud off the side of the trail. Dull, rust-colored metal half swallowed by wet leaves and jungle rot. It looked old, forgotten, like wreckage from some past fight that the jungle had started to reclaim. The squad stopped. No one spoke. Even the jungle seemed to hold its breath. "That it?" one soldier whispered. The lieutenant nodded slowly. "Must be." They stared at it from a distance. It was roughly the size of a small toolbox, edges jagged, one corner bent. No wires, no obvious mechanism, just metal. "Doesn't look like much," another muttered. "That's the point," their radio operator said quietly. They remembered the Australian's voice, calm, certain. You touch it, you die. The lieutenant crouched and studied the ground instead of the object. Leaves, mud, roots. Then he saw it. Or, rather, what wasn't there. No animal tracks, no broken twigs. Nothing had disturbed the earth around that object for a long time. "Hold here," he said. "Nobody moves closer." One of the younger soldiers shifted nervously. "Sir, it's probably just scrap. VC leave junk everywhere." Another added, "Could be old American gear." Or French, someone joked weakly. But nobody laughed. The air felt heavy, like pressure before a storm. The lieutenant picked up a fallen branch and tossed it gently toward the object. The stick landed 3 meters short. Nothing happened. A few shoulders relaxed. "See?" the skeptical soldier said. "We're spooking ourselves." He took one slow step forward. "Don't," the radio operator said immediately. "I'm not touching it," the soldier replied. "Just getting a better look." Another step. The jungle seemed quieter with every movement. Boots pressing into mud sounded too loud, too final. The lieutenant opened his mouth to stop him again. But hesitation cost seconds, and seconds in the jungle could be everything. The soldier was now only a few meters away. He leaned slightly, squinting at the metal shape. "Looks like part of a—" He never finished the sentence, because suddenly, from deeper in the jungle, behind them, far off to the left, a single bird burst out of the trees in panic. Everyone flinched. Rifles snapped up, hearts slammed. But nothing exploded. Nothing moved. The object stayed silent. Still, waiting. The lieutenant swallowed. "Back up," he said, voice tight now. "Slowly. Now." The soldier took a careful step back, and, for the first time, he noticed the ground under his boot wasn't solid. "Don't move." The lieutenant's voice was barely louder than a whisper, but every man froze like stone. The soldier, who had stepped forward, slowly looked down. His boot had sunk slightly into soft ground, not mud, something looser, freshly disturbed soil. His breathing became shallow. "Sir?" "Stay exactly where you are," the lieutenant said, calm voice, racing mind. The radio operator dropped to one knee and began scanning the area again. Not the object, but the ground, the leaves, the unnatural stillness. That's when he saw it, a thin line in the dirt, almost invisible, too straight to be natural. "Trip line," he breathed. "Where?" "Everywhere." Once you saw one, you saw them all. Hair-thin wires, running low between roots, disappearing under leaves, vanishing into the base of trees. Some stretched across the path, others ran outward into the brush, forming a web. The rusty metal object wasn't the trap, it was the bait. The lieutenant finally understood why the SAS wouldn't go near it. "Backtrack, same footsteps, nobody makes new ones." The men began stepping backward slowly, placing boots exactly into their old prints. Every movement deliberate, every breath loud in their own ears. Then one soldier stopped mid-step. "Sir." "What?" He pointed toward a tree trunk 5 meters off the trail. Tied low against the bark, hidden by vines, was something cylindrical, mud-covered, old, but wired. Another one was half buried near a log, another inside a rotting stump. The jungle floor wasn't a path anymore. It was a network, a field, a designed kill zone. The radio operator spoke quietly, horror creeping into his voice. They weren't protecting the object, they were protecting the area around it. The lieutenant nodded. "You go near it, you walk into the grid." They were already inside it, and then they heard it, a faint metallic click, not loud, not dramatic, just enough. Every head snapped toward the soldier at the front, the one who had stepped closest. His boot had shifted, just slightly. He froze, eyes wide. "I didn't mean to." "Don't move!" 3 voices hissed at once. Nothing happened. No explosion, no blast, just silence again. But now they understood something worse than sudden danger. This wasn't a trap meant to go off instantly. It was designed to make you panic, to make you run, to make you trip over the lines you couldn't see. The lieutenant swallowed. "Nobody runs, nobody drops, nobody jerks." Slowly, painfully slowly, he raised his radio. "We need engineers," he said quietly, "and we're not touching a thing until they get here." The jungle remained still. The object sat in the mud, harmless looking. But around it, the earth itself had teeth. They waited for 2 hours. No one spoke above a whisper. No one shifted unless absolutely necessary. Sweat ran into eyes, soaked collars, dripped from helmets. Mosquitoes bit freely. Nobody slapped them away, because every movement mattered. Finally, the jungle moved again. Not enemy movement. Professionals. 2 American combat engineers crept in from the rear, guided along the exact safe footsteps the unit had used earlier. With them came something unexpected. The Australian SAS patrol leader. He gave a small nod to the lieutenant. No, told you so. No dramatics, just calm focus. One engineer lay flat on the ground and began clearing leaves with a small probe, inch by inch. 30 seconds later, he stopped. "Sir, you were standing inside a layered trigger zone." The lieutenant didn't reply. He didn't need to. The engineer pointed with the probe. "Primary tripwire here. Secondary pressure release under disturbed soil," if he had stepped off fast. He didn't finish. The second engineer carefully uncovered part of the system. Thin wires branched outward like roots. Some led to buried munitions. Others led to grenades rigged in trees at chest height. It wasn't one trap. It was a chain reaction field. The SAS leader finally spoke quietly. "They build these near things soldiers can't resist checking. Scrap, gear, bodies sometimes." The Americans went still. "We lost a patrol to one like this last year," he added. "Only reason we spotted this one was the silence." The lieutenant glanced at him. "Silence?" "No insects," the Australian said. "Ground's been disturbed too often. Animals avoid it." The engineers worked slowly, painfully slowly, cutting, pinning, tracing lines. At one point, everyone froze as a small device shifted under tension. Nobody breathed. Then the engineer stabilized it. Minutes later, he exhaled. Main chain neutralized. A wave of silent relief passed through the unit. They carefully guided the trapped soldier backward, step by step, until he was clear. His legs nearly gave out once he was safe. The lieutenant looked at the Australian. "We would have walked straight into it." The SAS man shrugged lightly. "Most do." He turned to leave, already fading back toward the trees. "Hey!" the American lieutenant called quietly. "What made you warn us?" The Australian paused, half in shadow. "Because someone warned us once." Then he disappeared into the jungle like he'd never been there at all. The engineers finished marking the area for demolition teams. The rusty piece of metal still sat in the mud. Silent, harmless, deadlier than a firefight. And every man in that platoon walked away understanding one thing. In the jungle, the most dangerous weapon is the one that looks forgotten.